In my hometown of Lebanon, Connecticut, there are many historic homes, especially on the Green, some of which have been turned into museums. One of these is the Beaumont House. I've done the museum tour multiple times, but because I'm lucky enough to have a mother who is a local history nerd also, I know the details of the story that they don't give you on all of the tours. I'm going to share those with you today. Their website reads, located beside the museum to the north, the circa 1790 Beaumont House was the home of Revolutionary War veteran and Cooper Samuel Beaumont and his family. One of the 9 Beaumont children, William, left Lebanon around 1809. After training as a doctor and while serving as an army surgeon, William Beaumont investigated the workings of the human stomach. This work made him known as the father of gastrology and led the Yale University Beaumont Medical Club to locate this house in the northern part of Lebanon. In the 1970s, they had the building moved to a location behind the Governor Trumbull House, restored it, and donated it to the Lebanon Historical Society. In 2014, the Society moved the Beaumont House across the Green to this location on its campus. Restored and reinterpreted in 2016, the Beaumont House is furnished to show Samuel and Lucretia Beaumont's home circa 1810 based on Samuel's 1814 probate inventory. Visitors are encouraged to try their hand at some of the many chores essential in keeping the farm going as they learn about this farming family and its famous son. On June 6, 1822, Alexis St. Martin, a French-Canadian voyager, was accidentally shot with a musket at close range at the fur trading post on Mackinac Island in Michigan. St. Martin was taken to nearby Fort Mackinac to be treated by Army surgeon Dr. William Beaumont. Although St. Martin was a healthy young man in his 20s, he was not expected to recover due to the severity of his wound. Beaumont explains later in a paper that the shot blew off fragments of St. Martin's muscle and broke a few of his ribs. After bleeding him and giving him a cathartic, which apparently is an old-timey word for laxatives, Beaumont marked St. Martin's progress. For the next 17 days, all the food he ate re-emerged from his new gastric fistula. Finally, after 17 days, the food began to stay in St. Martin's stomach and his bowels began to return to their natural functions. St. Martin's wound healed as a fistula, with a permanent opening in his abdomen through which the interior of his stomach was visible from the outside of his body. Beaumont soon discovered that he was able to view the process of digestion via the nearly 1-inch wide hole leading to St. Martin's stomach. Seizing upon this rare opportunity, and with St. Martin's intermittent cooperation for the following 10 years, Beaumont conducted hundreds of experiments on the functions of the human stomach. The results of these experiments were published in Experiments and Observation on the Gastric Juice and the Physiology of Digestion in 1833. St. Martin allowed the experiments to be conducted, not as an act to repay Beaumont for keeping him alive, but rather because Beaumont had the illiterate St. Martin sign a contract to work for him as a servant. These signed contracts explicitly allowed Beaumont to conduct his experiments on St. Martin. However, subjecting a domestic servant from his own household to painful experimentation could not possibly be considered a moral or ethical practice, especially under these circumstances where the patient's master was also his physician. As Beaumont was a solitary source of food, housing, and income for St. Martin, one might question if he was truly a voluntary participant in these experiments at all. Beaumont recalls the chores St. Martin did. During this time, in intervals of experimentation, he performed all the duties of a common servant, chopping wood, carrying burthens, etc., with little or no suffering or inconvenience from his wound. Although these chores were not bothersome, some of the experiments were painful to St. Martin. For example, when Beaumont had placed sacks of food in his stomach, Beaumont noted, "The boy complained of some pain and uneasiness in the breast. Other symptoms St. Martin felt during these experiments were a sense of weight and distress and slight vertigo and dimness of vision. There were over 250 different experiments in all, with most of them detailing how Beaumont placed various kinds of food directly into St. Martin's stomach via the fistula. Most often, the food was kept in place by attaching it to a string that Beaumont left dangling outside of the hole to St. Martin's stomach. Beaumont could then watch the processes of digestion by looking directly in the stomach. He would also remove the food at regularly timed intervals to take weight measurements, and then reinsert the food into the stomach again to continue his observations. There is speculation that Beaumont never attempted to surgically close St. Martin's wound and deliberately left the opening exposed for the sake of conducting his medical experiments. Eventually, Beaumont and St. Martin parted ways. St. Martin wrote to Beaumont from Canada on June 26, 1834, refusing to return. As an Army doctor, Beaumont was posted to the Jefferson Barracks in St. Louis, Missouri in 1834. He became professor of surgery in the medical department of St. Louis University in 1837 and resigned from the Army in 1839. Repeatedly, Beaumont tried to get St. Martin to move to St. Louis. He never did. Beaumont died in 1853. When Alexis St. Martin died at the St. Thomas, Quebec in 1880, his family delayed his burial until the body began to decompose in order to prevent his resurrection by medical men, some of whom wished to perform an autopsy. Alexis Bidigan de St. Martin is buried at the St. Thomas Parish Cemetery in Joliet, Quebec, Canada. This is one of the many stories where the victim was forgotten and a man with very questionable morals was praised for it. More importantly, this is a story that taught me there is always more to the story to the lives of the people you hear about in these museums.